October 14, 1943, 30,000 feet above Schweinfurt, Germany. Major Allison Brooks is in the nose of a B-17 Flying Fortress, watching his formation die. The escorts turned back 20 minutes ago. Their tanks were empty. They had reached exactly as far into Germany as their fuel would allow, and then they had peeled away west, back toward England, leaving 291 bombers alone over the most heavily defended airspace on the planet. Brooks doesn't need to count the German fighters coming up to meet him. There are too many to count. By the end of that Thursday, a day that would enter the official record as Black Thursday, 60 B-17 would be shot down, another 17 so badly damaged they would never fly again. 650 men killed, wounded, or taken prisoner. 1 in 4 aircraft that took off that morning would not land that evening. The 8th Air Force had just suffered the worst single-day loss in its existence, but the number that nobody talked about publicly, the one that was already sitting on desks in Washington that same night, was not the aircraft count. It was the math. A bomber crew flew 25 missions to complete a combat tour. On a mission like Schweinfurt, the loss rate ran at over 20%. You do not need a statistician to work out what that means for the man in the cockpit. It means that completing a tour is not survivable. Not statistically. Not over any meaningful number of missions. And everyone who flew that day already knew it. What changed everything did not come from a general's office or a strategy paper. It came from a test pilot named Ronald Harker, a Rolls-Royce employee who showed up at RAF Duxford in April 1942, climbed into a Mustang on a 30-minute evaluation flight, and walked away with a single thought he could not get out of his head. The airframe was extraordinary. The engine was wrong. The P-51 had been built by North American Aviation in response to a British order in 1940, designed from scratch in 117 days, with a laminar flow wing so aerodynamically clean it produced less drag than anything flying at the time. On paper, it had everything. But the Allison V-12 engine it carried faded above 14,000 feet, and German fighters owned the sky above 25,000. The Mustang, as built, was a brilliant aircraft trapped at the wrong altitude. Harker knew that Rolls-Royce had just finished developing a new version of the Merlin, the 2-stage, 2-speed supercharged variant already going into the Spitfire Mark IX, that maintained full power at the altitudes where the air war was actually being decided. He took his notes back to Hucknall and started making phone calls. 3 Mustang airframes were re-engined with Merlins. Test results came back spectacular. The modified aircraft hit 441 miles per hour at 25,000 feet, nearly 100 miles per hour faster than the Allison version at that altitude. The Packard Motor Company in the United States built the Merlin under license so production could scale to the numbers the war demanded. The P-51B entered combat in December 1943 with the 354th Fighter Group based at Boxted in Essex. Major James Howard was one of the first men to take it over Germany. Howard had been born in Canton, China in 1913, the son of an American eye surgeon doing missionary work. He had grown up between 2 worlds, gone to college in Missouri, and learned to fly in the Navy. Before the war brought him to England, he had already been flying combat over Burma and China with the Flying Tigers, accumulating 6 confirmed kills over Japanese aircraft before most American pilots in Europe had seen a 0 up close. He was small and quiet, with a reputation in his squadron for checking his instruments twice before anyone else thought to check them once. His P-51B, which he had named Ding Hao, Chinese for the very best, wore kill markings from 2 different wars on its nose. On January 11, 1944, Howard led 49 P-51s from the 354th Fighter Group on an escort mission to Oschersleben, 100 miles southwest of Berlin. The target was a factory producing Focke-Wulf 190s. The mission was the biggest American air operation since Black Thursday 3 months earlier. Howard's group reached the bomber stream and immediately engaged a wave of German fighters swarming the 401st Bomb Group's B-17s. In the opening melee, Howard dove on a Messerschmitt Bf-110, destroyed it, and pulled up, and found himself alone. His squadron had scattered in the fight. He climbed back to bomber altitude and looked around. In every direction he could see German fighters. Bf-109s, FW-190s, Bf-110s. More than 30 of them already repositioning for their attack runs on the bombers. The P-47 escorts had gone home 10 minutes ago. Every other P-51 in the area was either engaged elsewhere or out of sight. There was no formation to rejoin. There was no backup coming. There was just Howard, a B-17 group with no cover and a decision. He pushed the throttle forward. For the next 30 minutes, Howard made pass after pass across the German attack runs. Every time a Bf-109 lined up on a fortress, Howard was already turning hard toward it. He shot down a Bf-109, then a second, then a third. He kept moving. Diving, climbing, rolling, never giving the German pilots a clear shot, never letting any of them hold a line on the bombers long enough to fire. He shot until his ammunition ran out. Then he kept going, diving straight at incoming fighters in a 400-mile-per-hour Mustang because a fighter closing head-on at that speed is an emergency whether its guns are loaded or not. The Germans could not know his guns were empty. They broke off. He dove at the next one. Major Allison Brooks, watching from the nose of his B-17, later said, "For sheer determination and guts, it was the greatest exhibition I have ever seen. It was a case of one lone American against what seemed to be the entire Luftwaffe. He was all over the wing, across it, and around it. Not one aircraft from the 401st Bomb Group was lost that day. When Howard's crew chief walked out to Ding Hao after it landed, he found one bullet hole in the left wing, a stray .50 caliber round. It had come from one of the B-17s he had been protecting.